to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. This is Marc Hyde.
And Chris Fuller.
And on today's episode of Real Talk Christian, we're celebrating the 50th episode of RTC. We're going to be looking at some of our favorite moments, reflecting on those, and it's just enjoying taking a stroll down memory lane. Fuller, you ready?
Let's go.
Happy anniversary,
Happy
Fuller.
anniversary, episode 50.
Looking back, dude, did you think we'd ever make it this far?
I don't think I ever thought this far ahead, to be honest with you. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. You know, let's see if anybody's interested.
Let's go buy some microphones and just see what happens.
See if people even want to listen to us. And it's like, you guys responding like, hey, all right, they do want to. I guess we'll keep doing it. Let's go.
I mean, think about the journey, though, man. I mean, we have been on other people's shows.
Right.
We've had recording artists come in. We've done various interviews and bonus content and social media. And
talked about some tough issues, things we've agreed on, things we haven't agreed on. We've gotten some flack for some of the things that we've said and some praise. So, I mean, it's kind of been all over. I'm okay. It's real talk.
But that's it, dude. It's real talk. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where I hope this – I don't want to use the millennial word of I hope this is a safe place. But, you know.
It's a safe zone.
It's also not, because if we say something, we get blasted. So it's not really a safe place.
And it's not even really all that safe for me and you. You'd be like, no, bro, I don't agree with this.
But so something I've noticed, though, is as the episodes go on, I've come more out of my agreeable shell.
Yeah,
I've pushed back a lot more.
You know what else I've noticed is that our episodes run longer. As we get more comfortable, our listeners have to endure us more.
What did we start with? Like, was it like 40 minutes, 50 minutes?
I think it was like 43 or 48 minutes, somewhere in that range.
Which is funny because the goal was like 20.
Yeah, like we were like, okay, let's try to do 20. And we were always in the like 40s, between 40 and 50 for like the good first 10 episodes. And then it's like, then it got into like the 50s. And you know, I figured out where the tipping point was. And I'm going to call this person out.
Wait.
Paul Lindgren. Paul Lindgren was the first time we actually hit over an hour.
Was it really?
His first, whatever episode that was, but it was with him. And then, like, I think all three of them ran almost an hour or over.
They were all long, but dude,
they were. And then after that, we started getting longer and longer and longer. And I mean, pretty soon we're going to be at like 2 hours. Which, hey, there's a lot of podcasts out there that go that long.
You're right. We never. No. The second one was Soche. Hit an hour and 7 minutes, and then we went back to normal.
Okay, gotcha.
But then Lindgren just stole the show, and after that, the floodgates opened.
And then, now it's there.
But we're more comfortable. We're having conversations.
And they're conversations that need to be had because we always can. I mean, like right now, we're starting the recording. You're starting to listen to us. Mark and I have already been talking for 3 hours and 15 minutes. So,
and this is our second pot of French press. It's already gone.
Yeah, which...
Let's talk about it. Let's go into our segment of what's brewing.
We got here. We
did a side-by-side tonight.
We did a comparison.
Yep.
We did, let's put the RTC roast against the Starbucks roast.
Wait, the Starbucks or the
I'm going to call it Starbucks right now.
Okay, you're being gracious.
Right.
You're being gracious.
So we did a side-by-side of the Ethiopian.
Yep.
Right?
Because Ethiopian is one of my favorite blends.
It's
the Starbucks Ethiopian is one of my favorites.
I had to roast Mark, his own Ethiopian batch, and all this. I had to do all the special stuff for Mark.
Yep,
so
I'm bougie.
So he could have his Ethiopian. So we did a side-by-side tonight, right?
Sure did.
Of the great and powerful Starbucks and the little RTC...
the great and powerful Starbucks.
Well,
you make it sound like it's a Sith Lord or a Sith grader.
I was thinking more like the Wizard of Oz, like I am the great and powerful Oz. But anyways,
it's okay.
So Mark, side by side, I'm not gonna give my opinion because my opinion's a little biased.
Well, obviously, because you put the time and the effort into the Ethiopian blend. It's your baby. It's your baby.
It's my baby.
It's your baby.
And you know how I feel, and I think our listeners know how I feel. But let's hear from the guy who drinks Starbucks several times a week. The side by side of the Ethiopian.
I'm only there like once a week.
Okay.
So
side by side of Ethiopian. What's your thoughts?
Okay, so I still like the Starbucks Ethiopian because it's got that Starbucks hit. However, this is like now that I'm mostly through my cup, I'm like, yeah, this tastes like what I'm expecting it to taste like. But we had the first cut, and we roasted them the same water.
Yep.
Okay, so we used the exact same distilled water.
It was
They were in the same time for the French press. Like we did a good
same cream. It's like
everything.
It's
Everything
side
is side by side. I tasted the Starbucks after the RTC and went, something don't taste right. Like something was weird. It just, but
It's
I mean,
off.
but I'm drinking it now, and I'm like, yeah, it's good. Like it's good, but like when I had the RTC and then flipped to Starbucks, I'm like, oh crap. Can I have more Fuller?
Fuller was right.
So, needless to say, we're drinking Starbucks because we, kicked back the RTC right away, real quick.
Yeah, that was down pretty quick.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you don't like the Starbucks.
I put like quadruple the cream in there, and I still got
to mask the crap
I still got
flavor.
and it just tastes burnt to me. That was the first thing. It was like, oh, there's like a weird aftertaste. It tastes nasty. And then I thought about it. I'm like, it tastes burnt. And then it's like, Starbucks.
Go figure.
Yeah. So that's yeah.
So we're drinking. This is the first time on air that we've said we're not drinking RTC. We're just drinking something different. But it was on purpose.
This is the first time in a while. I've drank other stuff in the past, but
when I'm on my decaf kick, I drink my Dunkin'.
Well, even in our earliest episodes, I mean, this is the 50th episode. Our earliest episodes, I mean, I didn't get into the roasting until like episode 30-ish, somewhere in there,
dude.
Like it was a while. So we have quite a few. I think we have more episodes of non-RTC coffee than
for now.
But anyways,
anywho,
so Mark, do we have any reviews? I mean, it's 50th episode. I'm praying that we have at least one review because we've been let down so many times in the past couple of months with no reviews. So I definitely need some.
It took us 2 months. And then we got back-to-back reviews. So
What?
actually have two. We're going to read 2 tonight.
Let's do it, bro.
We're going to read 2. And these people, I don't know who they are, so reach out to us at Real Talk Christian Podcast at gmail.com, right?
That's
Did I get
it.
it right? Reach
That's
out to
it.
us there so we can get you your mini swag bag. But one is from...
Wait, time out.
Wait.
We really need to get on those mini swag bags.
Well, people need to send us their info.
They do.
We've sent some people
There's
their
only
stuff.
one person, and I will talk about this one. There's only one person who sent me their info, and that was Andy Lehman from Dudes and Dads.
Yep.
And he sent me his info, and then the COVID-19 crisis hit, and so things have not gotten to him. Andy, if you were listening, we have not forgotten about you. Now that things are calming down a little bit, we will be sending you.
We have
your
gotten the mini swag bag to some people.
Some, yeah.
But it's when they reached out to us. But here's 2 people. This is not a name. This is just a little. It's like the fake name. It's like the email you make up when you're a kid.
Right.
This is Freebird91.
Freebird!
I'm free. 91. I'm guessing 1991, baby. And they're a Freebird.
Yep.
So kudos to you, I guess. The title is thought-provoking. 5 stars. Been enjoying the honest conversation, different perspectives. They always say are different perspectives, like they're trying to be nice. Our disagreements.
They're like, we don't agree with you, but it's nice to hear your thoughts.
They enjoy the honest conversation and different perspectives while also hearing how Marc and Fuller both process their own opinions on different topics. I like that one.
That's good.
And then this one is from Ashley Price. The title is An Honest Conversation, 5-star review. It says, I love this podcast. Girl.
Aw, thank you.
Homegirl know what's up, but she loves this podcast. Thank you, Ashley. You can tell they're just having a conversation and working out spiritual topics just like we are. It's an honest look at all things Christian, and I appreciate the sincerity in the show. Ashley and
Freebird.
Free Falling Freebird 91 on your Harley crotch rockets, whatever you got kicking.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Reach out to us. Let us know where we
definitely
need to send these mini swag bags.
So, fun fact, but not fun fact with Fuller, but fun fact.
Okay.
Most of our episodes, you all hear how you can get a hold of us through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter, even though we're not as active.
Fun fact, you can only leave a review on Apple iTunes, but I actually read somewhere that Apple is not the top podcasting platform. So you can't leave a review on Google or Spotify or any other place. So if you can't leave us a review on Apple, at least leave us one on Facebook. That'd be dope.
Or on Podbean if you're listening.
You can but anywho, there's so many ways to reach out to
and
us.
basically, if any of those social platforms that you're on, type in Real Talk Christian Podcast.
We're everywhere,
We're going to pull up. There's also the email that Mark just mentioned, the Real Talk Christian Podcast at gmail.com. And
wait, what?
And
What else is there?
We have a new thing that just came out for our listeners to actually, we talk about having these personal conversations with our listeners, and we've actually done something so we can do that.
Okay.
We have a Real Talk Christian podcast phone number now, sir.
What?
It's first time on the 50th episode. This is where we're going to drop it. So you can go ahead and get a hold of us via text or via phone call. And if we don't answer, we have a voicemail. Leave a message. And if it's a voicemail, your question may
play it on the show.
Your question may get on the show, and we'll just let you ask the question, and then we'll just do our best to answer it. But the phone number is 574-400-5352.
Say that again, Fuller.
Again, 574-400-5352. It's pretty simple because I've memorized it.
And we'll put it in the show notes now.
And it's going to go in the show notes. We'll put it out to all the social platforms. So everybody has our number now. Get a hold of us. Ask us your questions. Give us your reviews or comments there. We'll go ahead and play them over the air if it goes to voicemail, or if we're available, we will try to answer.
So Fuller, going into this, if someone has a question, they can actually text in.
They can text.
And we can have a conversation with that person.
They can text in, or they can call in. Yeah, whatever.
We are so accessible.
We are just making ourselves.
My goodness.
We're giving
out our phone number, bro.
Well, we always talk about that we want to have conversations with people. Like, that's what this podcast was started on. It was not just our opinions, but we wanted to know your opinions, your thoughts, your questions. So we're just trying to make that accessible the best way we can. So I think I don't think there's anything more that we can do unless we're going to get a P.O. box for letters, but who does letters anymore?
You can come to the studio and watch us drink coffee.
Yeah, I guess. But
I wouldn't recommend that, though. You'll be bored.
Yeah, probably, because it's going to be at least 3 hours of conversation before we ever hit record. So
that's true.
But yeah, so that's another new avenue for our listeners to get a hold of us.
And that'll be in the show notes on the social platform, so you don't even need to remember it.
Nope,
I love it.
So, and on the website, RealTalkChristianPodcast.com. It's a .com.
Yep, .com. It hooks up to our Podbean, but you can just hit RealTalkChristianPodcast.com.
You can anytime if you like, I don't know when I'm supposed to listen to this podcast, don't just go to the website.
Go to the website, bro.
There's a little hyperlink in there. Click that hyperlink. It takes you right to it.
Just like that. Well, dude, today is the 50th.
50th.
Honestly, we've had a lot of fun conversations. We've had some trying ones. We've had some emotional things that we've worked through on air. Like you could ask God any question.
That was Whew.
I would say that's outside of the first one of us telling our story.
That was pretty personal.
That was very personal.
Yeah,
that's probably the most personal we've gotten in
which
a while.
I enjoyed, and I've heard from a few of our listeners that they really enjoyed. So
yeah, me too.
I like it. Sometimes it's hard to get that personal, but we're so theological in our mindset sometimes that
it's hard because I've walked through some pretty interesting past these last year as well as you,
and one of these days we'll get into that story.
Maybe not tomorrow, but at one point. But we wanted to do something special on this episode,
Definitely.
Fuller. So what are we going to do on this episode, bro? I'm going to tee you up while I get us ready.
All right, hang on, let me square up here.
You got to do your Mark Hyde neck
let
crack.
me do my neck crack here. There's so many great episodes, and we've had so many good conversations, not just with Mark and I, but with guests that we've had on. It was like, man, if we could put them all together in one episode, first of all, it'd probably be over 50 hours long. It'd be a little long for our listeners.
Could you imagine that? Goodness.
Man. So we're like, all right, how can we do this to kind of just give a quick synapse of some of our favorite moments throughout episodes? And we're like, well, if we did 49 favorite moments, it would have still been too long. We're not trying to kill anybody here. So Mark and I did something.
We know we got some good sounding voices. But
there's so many good episodes, and we know obviously we can't get through everybody or all the guests that we've had on. We've had so many. We talk about these episodes all the time.
Yep.
But we picked out our favorite 10.
Just some of our favorite moments.
And it's not even, I wouldn't even say top 10. It's just some of our favorite moments, 10 favorite moments, little clips. And we're going to kind of play those clips and go through some of them, some of our favorite moments with our listeners. And hope you guys enjoy and maybe pick up a few things. We're going to go ahead and talk about what episode it is, what title, in case you want to go back and listen to the whole episode. Maybe you've missed some. Maybe you're just joining us for the first time. To kind of give you guys an idea of what we kind of liked and some of the conversations we've had. So.
And what's fun is you can hear even the audio quality change.
Oh, man.
Like one of the ones that I'll bring, it decided to be like crazy reverbed. So
Did you talk about the one with Justin Herman?
Yeah, that one got reverb pretty hard in the post edit for this. I don't know what happened, but it's still
well,
good.
We were using some old equipment and
I don't know. Something happened. Something happened.
Anyways,
but either way.
Mark, let's start it off. Mark picked out 5. I picked out 5, which is hard. That's a 10th of the episodes we've actually done, so it was hard to pick out 5, just 5. And then it was like, okay, in those 5 that we picked, all right,
2 minutes.
It's like, all right, we'll try to keep it 2 to 3 minutes. It's like, and so some of them may run a little longer, some of them run a little shorter, but we tried to keep them small so we weren't going through and making this a 2-hour episode, even though we could do that.
We could do that without bringing in old
Mark,
school content.
In no specific order, what was one of your favorite episodes and favorite moments?
Well, okay, so I'm going to start with my favorite episode that we've recorded. Whenever people ask me, they go, Mark, what's your favorite episode? It's always, always, always episode number 22. Episode 22, Finding God's Will for Your Life. Because we brought up the playground, and I blew the playground illustration. So let's listen to the clip, and then
we'll maybe talk about it.
Maybe talk about it, because we've had more conversations since. So here we go.
How do we find God's will, Mark?
We don't.
Oh, okay. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. No, so this is kind of how I teach it. Is I teach it like God's will is a playground.
Okay.
That's how I describe it.
Explain that to us.
Okay, so I teach it as God's will is a playground. So for illustration purposes, if you live here in South Bend, there's this magical place called Kids Kingdom.
It's a wonderful place.
Dude, it's legit. Like it's an all wood playground that no matter what age you are, you can enjoy it. So like when I would take Elliot there at like 2 years old, like able to walk but not do too much stuff, he enjoyed Kids Kingdom because it wasn't like these elaborate new playgrounds where you have to like go over these suspended bridges and stuff. Like it was, it's wood. That's all it is. It's wood. Yep. So you just climb up through these mazes and go through these tunnels. And
it's been around since we were kids.
Like there's some like bridges and stuff like that. But yeah, even before we were kids, I think.
Yep.
But the thing about this playground though is there's fence that goes around the entire playground, and there is one entrance. And that same entrance also serves as the exit.
Right.
So as a parent, I've seen a lot of parents, they will position themselves in such a way where they sit on a bench by the entrance and exit, and no matter where their kid is, they might not be able to see their kid, but it don't matter because unless they climb fences, they aren't getting out. Like there is absolutely no way for them to get out. Like even the swings are in a different area, but you still have to go through a path to get to the swings, and that path still takes you right by the exit.
Right.
So if you're sitting at the right spot, your kid is safe. And I view God's will as that way, as it's this massive playground with these fences, and there's one way in and there's one way out. The way in is called life, the way out is called death. But the question then, some people might be going, okay, like how the crap does that work? Like God's will is just a big playground. It's an interesting conversation, so hopefully people are okay with me building this picture in their minds.
Yeah, break it down for us.
So basically, this is how I view it. So anything inside the playground, a kid can play on. Doesn't matter if they go on the teeter-totter, or the swings, or the merry-go-round, or the slide, or the bridge, or the this, or that. It doesn't matter what they do. As long as they stay inside the fence, they can do whatever they want. Now, there's rules while being inside of the playground that you have to follow. Like, okay, Elliot, you can't punch a kid to get off the swing. Like that's a no-no. You can't push your sister down the slide because she's going too slow. You got to wait your turn. Like there's still things they need to do.
Right.
But it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you enjoy your time. So I describe that as like college choices. You have 1,000 different college choices. Just pick one. Like, unless this is completely outside of God's will. If you got 4 different colleges to choose from, and you want to go to college, you want to study, figure out the pros and cons, and then pick one. It doesn't really matter. Like, if you think, oh, if I go to IUSB or IU Bloomington, if I choose like Bloomington, oh no, am I outside of God's will? Oh no, I went there for a year, I left. Okay, I must have been outside of God's will because now I need to go here. In reality, it's like, no, just pick a college and go for it. Career, jobs, education. Now, I am the person where it's like, I don't like to live for the weekend in terms of, I'm not one of those guys who works And then by the time Friday comes, you're just so excited about Saturday and Sunday. And then you go back to work and you're miserable for 40 hours a week. Like, I don't want to live my life miserable for 40 hours a week. I want to enjoy what I'm doing those 40 hours a week. So I look forward to Tuesdays when I go back in the office and get to do the grind. Now, I enjoy all my portions of my life too, but I don't hate my job. And I encourage people to don't do something you absolutely hate because that just sucks. But so basically everything inside the playground is safe. Now, there's things outside the playground, and the question is, okay, so just like Kids Kingdom, as long as Elliot stays inside the walls, he's fine. And I believe that God actually sets up walls for us in our lives, too. And when you're outside of these walls, then you're outside of God's will. That's it.
You love that episode.
I love that episode.
And everybody's like, wait, why'd you cut it off? Like we said, we're just doing little snippets.
Little snippets. I was just teeing myself up, man.
All right, Mark. Yeah, that was one of those episodes that we kind of differed on the opinions of what we thought, and I thought it was a good conversation, and we both chewed on that since that episode.
Yeah, we have.
And I've mentioned it in previous podcasts that all right, I can kind of see it a little bit, and you know, I'll give you a little bit of budge room, but not a whole lot.
Of budge. See, and since I've been thinking about it, I still stand by it. I mean, I love the playground theory. The only thing that you challenged me on, and you said, Mark, where is the Holy Spirit in prayer in the playground?
Right.
And I said, I don't know, boss. I got to think about that. And it's true. Like, the one thing I did not put in the playground is, and you know, that was a 50-minute episode. When I taught the series, it was a 6-week series that I taught through. So, you know.
Which was like, what, an hour and a half long each? No, not that long.
Teenagers, like 35 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I always said 30, but they sometimes went 45. But I'm so engaging. They just thought it was only 5 minutes, you know, obviously. But no, that's the one thing I did not add to the playground. So, yeah. So, you know, looking at it, I still hold by the playground. I've actually helped teens choose college choice recently because of the playground theory. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I'm like, I want to add to that is the fact of, you got to have prayer in there too.
Right. And the leading of the Holy Spirit.
Because sometimes, you know, we might think this makes the most sense,
right?
But does God always follow what makes the most sense?
Definitely, yeah. And we don't want to go into the whole thing of that. If you want to know more about that, go back to episode 22. Finding God's will for your life would be the title of that.
Yep.
And listen to Mark and I's opinion and where we're getting our opinion from.
Yep, I love it
on that. So,
but hey, Fuller. So, what episode do you want to bring to the table? We're gonna go with one of yours now.
So, unlike you, I'm not gonna go with my best one yet. I'm gonna lead up to it. It's gonna be that way. People are like, all right, get a little taste, and then they have to wait till the end. I'm gonna do the end.
We're gonna tease them.
We're gonna tease them a little.
We're gonna tease them.
But one of my favorite episodes, well, I've got so many. And I'm trying to save some of the better ones for later. But one of my favorite episodes was actually episode 2, where we talked about Disney.
The first RTC episode that wasn't about our own story.
Yeah, it was. And it was a great conversation that we had. And the clip that we have is we were talking a little bit about how we should preview content before we let our kids see it. So let's dive into that real quick.
No, but I think you hit the nail on the head is we parents, have to screen. I mean, we can't just slap our – and this is – I mean, Elliot loves these dinosaur videos on YouTube, and I hate them, man. I mean, how stupid is it? I don't get it. I really don't. How stupid is it where it's like my son wants to watch 20 minutes watching on TV –
somebody playing with dinosaurs.
Playing with dinosaur Play-Doh pieces that he has right over there.
Right.
Like, I'm like, dude – you just binged 40 minutes of these people playing with like Legos and dinosaurs and Paw Patrol, and you could have just been playing with it by yourself. And that's why, I mean, he knows. I mean, I've been very hard nosed about it. Like I don't let him watch that unless it's one of those things where, you know, I give him a little earn. I mean, I don't just say no, never.
Right.
But I don't do it because I don't know what the next YouTube video is. I mean, I just don't know.
Yeah, you don't just push play and then walk away.
And every movie he's ever seen, I mean, let's be honest, I watch every Disney movie that comes out.
Yeah.
But I don't just slap him in front of it without knowing what's going on. And even he's 4, he doesn't fully understand it. But I've talked with him about things where it's like when Mufasa died. When Mufasa died and he was killed by Scar, like Elliot he actually cried as a 3-year-old when Mufasa died because Simba's daddy died. And I mean, Elliot's a bit of a softie and he has a soft, gentle heart. And I love it. I don't want him to grow out of that. But we talked about it, and then we talked about I had a conversation with 3 about the fragileness of life.
Yeah.
And that we all will die.
Right.
And that's why we need Jesus.
Yep.
And
exactly.
and it's just it's
yeah.
cool
You
to have
can
these
lead into good
conversations.
segues with it. I mean, these stories point out good characteristics that we all should really take something from and learn.
And that's it. I mean, we can have so many conversations about Jesus with them. And I mean, I have a Charles Spurgeon quote right here in front of me. And this actually is a true Spurgeon quote. I mean, if you don't know who it is, just say it's Spurgeon. You're probably right.
Right.
But he said, let us expect our children to know the Lord. Let us, from the beginning, mingle the name of Jesus with their ABCs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great.
I mean, that kind of hits the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, I always enjoy that, especially the very beginning of talking about the dinosaurs and your son. It always makes me laugh.
He still plays with them, man, but I don't let him watch YouTube. He knows
Right.
he's not allowed to watch YouTube in my house.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, there wasn't a whole lot that I think we disagreed with in this episode. I think we were both in total agreement. And that episode name was "Is Disney Causing Our Kids to Walk Away from Christianity?" Where Mark and I actually got together and we talked about some of the boycotts that happened in the 90s from Disney and all this stuff and what it actually means and what our responsibilities are as a parent.
And that's, I think, the key word, the responsibilities.
Right. So, yeah, that was episode 2. So,
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
So, Mark,
ready for the next one?
bro, we just got to keep
All right,
rolling.
we're going to keep
Where you
rolling.
at,
So
man?
this one, I'm going to bust out episode 11, which is one of my favorite because Justin Herman, now he reached out to us recently. He was a youth pastor for years. He left the paid church student ministry role. He's back in student ministry again in an organization, but we talked with him all about parenting in a digital age. And I've actually handed this podcast specifically to so many different parents.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. There's pretty much Justin, when he starts talking, he just doesn't stop for like
Right.
40 minutes. It is pure gold content. But in this little clip, we're going to look at what technology does to the brain and why it's actually important in this conversation. And I apologize up front.
Reverb.
There's going to be some reverb in the voices just on this. When you go back to the actual episode 11,
Right.
it's not there. But for
Right.
some reason, it just had a reverb in this one. But let go.
Culture's changing where we're not searching out information. Information now comes to us in every way, shape, and form. So they're with their friends. With their friends, those experiences are coming to them, and they want to be a part of that. They want to know what's going on. They want to be a part of what's going on. They want to see memories of the things that they did, and that's not entirely a bad thing. Now, the other part of it is, though, that technology changes parts of our brain. So every time we open up our cell phone, we're not opening it up because we are bored. We're opening it up because we want to get something from it. And especially when it comes to social media, there's an anticipation of how many people liked a photo. Did people comment? What is happening? And we scroll through looking for like that fix of information that we want. Now, it does something to our brains because it produces much more dopamine than our brains need. That's why you'll see kids who get addicted to their cell phone, addicted to technology, addicted to social media. They can't live in the moment because the moment isn't giving them any kind of high. The moment is kind of boring. So then you go out to the other parts of the world via technology to get a high, to get an exciting burst of what's happening and what are they missing, and to be part of something. Now, the interesting thing is that dopamine, that same kind of extra excretion of dopamine in our brains happens during times of gambling. It happens during times of pornography. It happens during times of excessive drinking. These are all addictive related things, and the dopamine's connected to that addictive quality. So I think there's a line there where technology, it doesn't have to be all bad, and it also doesn't have to be all good. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But learning the healthy practices, that's the bigger win when it comes to teaching kids good, healthy technology tools. And yeah, kids should have technology and access to technology, not just because it's useful for them as they're growing up, but because one day they're going to be out of the house and they're going to have access to everything. And if we haven't taught them healthy practices, then it's going to end up being a huge debacle, a huge problem, because they were never taught how to manage these tools in a wise way.
That was Justin Herman from episode 11, Parenting in the Digital Age.
Man, it's crazy to talk about. He started talking about the dopamine and how it affects our brains and how it produces that addictiveness. And, thinking about it even in my own life, I know I wasn't a part of this episode with you and Justin because my son was born and I was in the hospital.
Shiloh.
But it's just crazy to think about if we really look at society, how many of us are addicted and trying to get that urge of information, like Justin was just talking about, out of our media devices. So,
and if you want to know, check your screen time. I mean, let's be honest, everyone's like quadrupled during quarantine.
I turned mine off.
Really?
Yeah.
I have an hour Instagram timer, so it lets me know when I hit an hour, and I hit it every day, which that's a lot of time on Instagram, bro. And that's not even YouTube or Facebook or.
If you put Craigslist in there, I'd probably hit it. I like Craigslist. I like looking at stuff.
I didn't know Craigslist still existed, but either way, that was one of my favorite clips with Justin Herman. Man, talking about the dopamine. I thought that was just nuts.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed listening to that when it first came out.
I love it. Wait, what's your next one, bro? What you got for us?
Oh man, it's so hard. It's so hard.
You say that every time. It's so hard.
The next one that I enjoyed was one of our first guests, actually. Mr. Brandon Soche. Pastor Brando from Southside Baptist Church in South Bend.
And Abba Father Podcast.
Abba Father Podcast now, yeah. This was episode 6 entitled Christians and Music Part 2. So this is the second part of our conversation with Pastor Brando. And this is just a little snippet of where Brandon was talking about putting our personal tastes aside when we come together as a corporate body to worship.
To get back to that issue about music being contentious in the church, I think some of that is we have to, and part of my job as a pastor is to help people understand that when we come into Sunday morning worship, we got to put some of those tastes aside for the goal of singing together to our great King. I would prefer, a lot of times I would probably prefer to worship to my hard rock stuff, or, one of my favorite bands out there making worship music is Citizens and Saints, or the Citizens, and it's like a indie rock, like it's pretty heavy. Like
your wife doesn't like them.
She thinks he's a little nasally, but I think he's great. He's got a great like rough voice, and like I just love rocking out to that kind of stuff when I'm gonna, even worship wise. But that's not always appropriate for the corporate worship, and so I'm laying aside my tastes when I come to the table, and so I think that's something that I think we all need to kind of get in the habit of doing to some degree. Like, we don't check our entire interest and taste at the door when we come to the church, but we are there to serve God and to serve others. We're not there for our pleasurable experience. We're there to sing.
Right. Man, that is so true, and it rings so true to me today that we all have different tastes in our music styles. I mean, we talk about it. I'm the folk guy, and you're like
punk pop rock.
Yeah, that's you, man. But when we come together, we have to set aside. There's so many divisions in the church over church music, especially churches that are going from hymns to more modern music in that transitional phase, and how it's not really about the music that's played, but the heart behind it, and how we should come together as a corporate body to do that worship. It still rings so true to me today after that conversation. So
yeah, and we see it with how Soche does it. We sing so many hymns at our church, but they don't sound like we had a funeral. Like they got a little pep and stuff. Like we're doing Holy, Holy, Holy today.
Right.
Or no, not today, but today's not Sunday, but we're going to be doing it Sunday.
Right.
That thing's got to drive, and I mean, it's just cool. But, Soche always points back to, it ain't about us. It's about us singing appropriate songs to worship God.
Praise songs to God.
Yep.
Because that's who it's about.
I love it. And that was episode 6.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was with the Christian and the
Christians and Music Part 2.
Part 2. There we go.
So, all right. So diving in next, Mark, what do you got for us?
I'm going to take a stroll down a Marc proud moment when we interviewed the teens and the college kids.
Oh, yeah.
2 of my, and I should say this, all 4 are officially college kids now, which make me just feel old. But we had 2 episodes with them. The first episode was with only 3 of them, and then the fourth one, the last one, showed up because he had football practice Saturday morning right after a game. It was Colby Watts from LaVille High School, Carly, his older sister, which is now Carly Pendle. She just got married.
Yep.
And it's just super fun to see that. Kind of sucked, though, because they got married in the middle of COVID, so they had to do their whole ceremony on Facebook Live. It was kind of sad, but they still did it. And then Jagger, and who's a student at IUSB.
Jagger
Kripe, and Eli Smith, who's going to be a freshman down at Purdue.
Who is Pastor Scott Smith's son.
Yep,
PK.
his oldest son. He's a PK. So in this one, you actually asked the question. You asked Carly.
Never, not me.
No, never. You asked Carly, you said, what is one piece of advice that you would give a graduated high school student as they enter into college?
I want to pass it over to Carly. And what advice would you give to the high school kids coming into college, the seniors going into college, how to stay strong in their faith?
Yeah. I have 2 pieces. The first one is kind of basic, but
Well, basic
just-
white girl. Let's go.
Wow. Just like be yourself. Like I can't like stress it enough. Like you don't want to try to be somebody who you're definitely not, because that never gets you very far. And then you have like fake friends. And then the second one was just to basically, like in high school, it's like the cool thing is to be like popular and have as many friends as you can and have the biggest group that you can and like all that stuff. And like my biggest piece of advice would be like just keep your groups small and like put yourself in the groups that you want to treasure the most. Like for me in college, it was the Bible study group that I was in. Like it was so like those groups were so much better to me than my study groups with school, or like my friend groups that would go out to Starbucks and I knew that they were not Christians, or they say they were Christians but like not really digging in deep with it all. So I would just say keep your groups small. And
So almost like your friends shouldn't be an inch deep and a mile wide, but more of a mile deep and an inch.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Or as Jagger's profile said, for how long, I'd rather have 4 quarters than
100 pennies.
4 quarters instead of 100 pennies. That was from episode 9, Teens and College Students, Part 2.
Man, we keep reaching back to the past now. I mean, this was almost a year ago when we were doing some of these conversations. So,
and there was from these 2 episodes, there was 2 hours worth of content from these kids,
Man,
and some of them were pouring their heart out.
Yeah.
But what I loved about this little segment was Carly. She was from this area. She's actually an orphan. She's not living on the streets, but both her mom and her dad died.
Right.
And there's 5 siblings. And she went to a local college, stayed on campus, Christian college, Bethel. And then she transferred down to, it was either IUPUI or U of Indy. I want to say it was like
I think it was the first one you just mentioned.
IUPUI, Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. And what I loved about her little nugget right here is she went from a Christian college where they had to have chapel and go to church to a secular place, and she's like, I had to know who I was,
right,
and make sure I had really solid friendships. And in that episode, she actually shared a story about how she randomly made these beautiful Christian connections and started having Bible studies in her dorm room. And even though they couldn't really go to church because they didn't really have vehicles, they still worshiped together. And
right.
Because of that, she was able to have a Christian community. And now she's back here. She's married. She's working at a Christian preschool. She's crushing it, man. She's just crushing it. So
yeah,
that was kind of a little proud moment. That was a Marc Pastor proud moment.
So what episode was that again, Mark?
That was episode 9, Teens and College Students, Part 2.
Very nice. Very good.
What you got for us, Fuller?
Well, since we're on the kick of guests right now,
we are on the kick. We're on the kick.
I'm going to go ahead and jump into episode 31, our Dudes and Dads podcast mashup about impacting our families. The one where Mark was hyped up on Jamaican Blue Mountain.
Making me crazy.
But the reason why I wanted to get into this is because Joel is kind of pouring out his story and how he interacts with his family, and he's talking about how important it is for him to spend time with his kids. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Do stuff with your kids, first of all. building trust with my children. Let me, I guess, back up and say this. Okay, so there is a high correlation between irresponsible parenting or absent parenting and lack of belief structure in life. And I'm not trying to do a bunch of pop psychology or whatever, but
Pastor Joel's coming out.
Well, find any well-known, very outspoken atheist, and the story from their childhood are all very, very similar.
Yeah.
When a child learns that from the early age of, hey, when I have a need, there is a authority over me that meets that need and is there for me when I need them, that builds faith. That builds faith structures. That's the beginning developmental part of it, right? And that just continues on into adulthood. And I mean, Andy has heard me preach and talk about the prefrontal cortex, a million and one times. But a kid's brain, just developmentally, somewhere, depending on the research, they're saying even close to 29 years old, there's not full formation in those areas of discernment, wisdom, judgment, all of those things.
So Mark, you ain't there yet. Sorry, buddy.
Hey,
so close.
But even between 11 and 15, I forget what it's called, but it doubles.
Yeah, right.
Like your brain capacity skyrockets between 11 and 15, and that's
we
why your entire
these.
Life can be episode 10 with Justin Herman.
No,
that was one of them. That
was one,
this.
And then we also covered it in the Would Jesus Smoke Pot?
Would Jesus Smoke Pot? That's right. We talked about that, and then Justin goes into it with the.
We're right on board
brain.
with you.
So,
there.
yeah, we're tracking, bro.
So just again, it's
it ain't new age, it's real talk.
It's real talk. No, that's the thing of being present and meeting your kids everything Andy said. I just echo. Like it's I have found for me in this season of life, I have to sort of build in. Like that's why we do. Honestly, that's why we do 4-H. It's a big part of it. I am in some way outsourcing the structure and the time to have intentional connection with my kids.
Right.
But I'm going to be there. So when we go to fishing club meetings, I'm sitting right next to my son. We're learning together, and then we're going to go apply some of the things that we learn. Hopefully we catch fish at some point.
You're not a fisherman if you're not catching fish.
We're working on that part of it.
But you're doing it together,
But we're doing it together. So we're building that into the rhythm, and I guess, and I've just learned, it's like, yeah, at this stage in my life, I need other people to supply the form and the structure, and then we'll do, but it's going to be something that we can both do together. And here's the deal: my ability to convey the gospel and to convey the love of Jesus to my kids, it's going to be very hard for my kids to believe that God loves them if their father, if their heavenly father loves them, if their biological father is out doing any of the things that men do to escape from responsibility, from themselves, from all that sort of stuff. And believe me, those challenges and temptations are in front of me, just like there are anybody else on a daily basis. There's always something else I could be doing, and in ministry, there's always something else that I could be doing.
The job is never done.
That would be for ministry that other people would pat me on the back for, but that means
my family would suffer.
Yeah, that means my family would suffer. And so, the moment that I can't be sure that I'm caring for my kids and investing in them, if that ever gets to that point where then it's like, well, then other things, including, I mean, everything is up on the altar before God as far as what needs to stay and what needs to go.
Man, that was such a great conversation with Andy Lehman and Joel DeMott from the Dudes and Dads podcast. Our first, man, I can't talk right now. Our first podcast mashup that we've ever had, and it was just so much fun. We went to Boating Town,
and it took us an extra 20 minutes because we got stuck behind the buggy.
Yeah, the buggy. Yeah. But man, I really just love hearing Andy and Joel's stories and how they interact with their family, and how even through bad times, how it's impacted their family and how it's brought their families closer together. Man, it was just a great time with those guys. Those guys have if you got a chance to listen to their podcast, the Dudes and Dads podcast, it is a fantastic podcast.
That's one of your favorites.
It is one of my favorites. That and the Dad Tired podcast, those two are my favorites. But it's an amazing story to hear about what the Lamans went through and the loss of their daughter. And if you haven't listened to that episode, it's episode 31, Impacting Our Families, with the Dudes and Dads podcast, and they go through some of the heartbreak that actually happened in Andy Layman's family.
And what's cool is this is what I like about watching Andy, because he's very active on his Instagram.
Oh yeah.
What he told us on the podcast, I have seen in every single post.
Definitely.
Like, he was just like chilling with his daughter tonight, just having a daddy and daughter time. And then he does stuff with his son. He's teaching him how to do all these different things.
Yeah.
And Joel DeMott, he took his boys fishing and was teaching him how to fish and do all these different things. And to see two people who say, we're dudes and we're dads, so let's figure out how to do this together and actually impact our families and our kids. And then I see what they're doing on social media. And of course, social media is just a highlight reel. I get that.
Right.
But at the same time, there's no question that these kids know that dad loves us.
Oh, definitely.
And that's what I think is super cool about that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. And it's a little embarrassing. I was hyper.
So if you go back and listen to that episode, Mark is really jazzed up.
Put the speed at 0.5 and it will sound normal. Let's just put it that way.
All right, Mark, what you got next for us?
So we got 2 left. This was one
two left
for me.
For you.
Two left for me.
We have 4 total left.
We have 2 important ones left. We'll let you guys decide which ones are important. But we're going to step into episode 29, which is, can we have both faith and science? And can the two live together? And this was a very big one. And what was interesting about this conversation is, as we went along in the conversation, the Bible changed our stance on a couple of things. So we were talking, when we read it, and I would read it and be like, oh, well, crap, I guess I can't talk about that anymore because the Bible just disproved that one.
Our show notes got thrown out the window about halfway through. It was like, all right, well, we're just going to go with the Bible.
But in this one, we talked mostly about the fact of your view on creation, on both old earth creation versus young earth creation, is not a salvation issue. And in this episode, we actually we hit on it, but not fully, but we talk about why. So let's jump in. I want to get to theistic evolution real quick and just touch on that.
All right, let's do it.
But before I get to that, this is where I want to say where I think people can be young earth or old earth creationists and still be Christians, because what does it mean to be a Christian?
That you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is the Lord of all.
And believe in 6 literal days, right?
I don't see that anywhere. But
exactly. So so a lot of people will want to get mad at old earth creations, like, oh, you're not a true Christian, and you have to be a Christian, and like, no, you can believe in day age, you can believe in old earth, but that's not a salvation issue.
Right.
Now, Ken Ham, I do like what he says. It's an authority issue of the authority of God's word.
Right.
And if we can't believe the actual first chapter of the Bible, how can we believe?
Then we're going to probably call into question. Yeah.
But at the same time, if we believe God's outside of time and it looks like it took billions of years from our point of view, that doesn't change what the gospel is, because God's still outside of it.
Correct.
And so at the end of the day, both of these people believe that God created everything. And God is the creator. He's the sustainer. The Bible is the authoritative word. Like, I mentioned his name earlier.
The interpretations are different.
Ross. Right. Hugh Ross is actually a defender of the Bible like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
Like, he believes that it is inerrant, it is inspired, there is nothing wrong in it. It's just the interpretation of what we read inside of it that does change it. Now, the one thing I have a problem with is theistic evolution, and here's why. Long story short, theistic evolution believes that, just like we see in the creation record, we started from something little. God's the one who activated everything. Mm-hmm. And I actually, can I go on a pet peeve of mine? When creationists are like, oh, what? So God created a fish and then it became a bicycle and then it became no. Or like, oh, so God created a fish and then it became an ape and then it became a man. It's like, no, that's not how people believe evolution actually works. But at the end of the day, it's the fact of God used evolution to start with little, and then as more oxygen entered the atmosphere, animals became bigger, they became bigger, and then eventually man came out of that. But the problem I have with theistic evolution is twofold. One is, if man's created in God's image and we came from animals that were not created in God's image, where did that transition take place? And why are we any different than animals if we're the ones made in God's image and there's not?
Right.
And then on the flip side, which is the same problem with the gap theory and a lot of other ideas, is there had to be death then before the fall. And the Bible says, why is there death in the world?
There's a third thing with that too.
Okay.
So if you're reading in Genesis 1, after each day,
God said it was good.
it was good. And so what you're saying is by the evolutionary process of, you're atom, then you're a molecule, then you're so on and so forth.
Right. Over billions and billions of years.
Right. What you're saying is God created something that was not yet at its perfect state, that it had to evolve to get to the perfect state of being in his image. No, when God says something's good, it's perfect.
When God said something's good, it's perfect. I love that line, bro.
Man, sometimes I surprise myself. I'm like, man, that's pretty good, Chris. Oh.
Dude, there was one episode, not talking about this one, where I was listening to it and I'm like, dang, RTC Marc is preaching at me right now.
Yeah,
what is happening?
More often than not, especially when we're doing the podcast, I always feel like I'm like, all right, oh, man, I'm convicted by what I'm saying. I feel like the Holy Spirit's speaking through us, and then we get convicted by it.
No, but the one other thing I liked about this episode was so many people believe you have to have faith or science. And we talked about that at the beginning where it's like everything that science can't answer, faith answered. But then as our scientific abilities got bigger, it pushed faith out and out and out. And we have a little room in our house for faith and a little room in our house for science. When in reality, they faith is the foundation. You got to love the coexist bumper sticker. Faith and science, they can coexist. But either way, it's more the fact of, so many people want to make young earth creationists, at least my growing up it was a salvation issue. You got to believe this, and if you don't believe this, then you must not be Christian. No, it's a secondary issue. At the end of the day, though, it's what do you believe about man and how God created man? Did he create a literal man? And if same thing, if death came before the fall, well, then how the heck does that work?
I think this was
Jesus was the perfect Adam.
And this was the first episode where it was like we said in the beginning, before we played the little clip, was that we totally changed our stance halfway through the podcast.
Yep.
We started reading the scripture, and we always try to bring scripture into it. And as we continue to read and talk and work through these things together, it brings new light. And this is a very clear example and a clear episode.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that was episode 29. Can we have both faith and science?
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. The one next to the final one of mine is a very important one because without this guest, us knowing this next guest, we would not have our intro or outro music. This is Paul Lindgren.
In the very, because we've even changed our intro music.
We have. This is,
and that was still Paul.
Right, exactly. So this is Paul Lindgren, and he was telling us his story about, it was just his story. Like over the past, 7 years, or his story of heartache, of an affair, of a divorce, and a rebirth and a new marriage. And this episode is episode 17, Conversation with Paul Lindgren, Part 3. There was a 3-part series. Each one was like an hour long or over an hour long. And we probably could have gone 6 or 7 more episodes with just Paul's story. But in this little clip, Paul is giving a word of caution to some of those that are married.
I am by no means an aged person to gain wisdom from, but learn from my experiences. People that are going through hard things in marriages, especially in marriages, there's a statistic here that says if a close friend gets divorced, you are 147% more likely to divorce and 33% more likely if a friend of a friend divorces. If you work with someone who is in the process of divorcing, you're 75% more likely to divorce. That just goes to show in itself how much the influence of people that are around you have on you. When we were talking about divorce and death, and WF Lawyers, who's a lawyer firm, they're the ones that deal with divorces. A new study entitled Divorce and Death shows that the broken marriages can kill the same rate as smoking cigarettes. Indications that the risk of dying is a full 23% higher among divorces than those of married people. When you are dealing with someone who's married, whether it's just fighting problems, if you are in that marriage, be careful what kind of things, who you're going to try to vent that, because a marriage is sacred, and what goes on in that marriage, only those two people know. And if you start to go to form allies, what are you doing?
Right.
You're splitting your house, you're dividing your house. And if you are the friend of someone married going through a situation, line yourself up with Scripture.
Right.
And understand that there is no way you can fully know what's going on in that marriage unless you're in it.
Always take the side of God.
Always take the side of God. And there are two sides to a story.
Yep.
And,
and neither side could be right. Both sides could be wrong.
Both sides could be wrong. Both sides could be right.
Right.
In certain ways. Just careful how you assert yourself into someone else's life. You don't know what's going on.
Man, some good,
all lingering truth,
good
man.
Wise words there at the end of be careful how you assert yourself because you don't know what's going on, and you could hear half of the story, and it may be true or it may not be true, and how we have to be careful if you're dealing with those that are having marital problems. And the statistics alone, your eyes got like wide. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about these statistics.
That's unreal.
It's just crazy, these statistics of divorce and the words that he said of being careful who we align ourselves with and who we take advice from and friendship with. And it is very true. Very, very true.
And if you haven't listened to these 3 episodes with Paul Lindgren, the first episode was the fact of he had an affair on his wife.
Right.
And then they got back together.
Right.
And then she had an affair.
And got divorced.
And then he went through the hell of a situation.
Yeah.
That sounds like I'm cussing there, but
No.
he went through
hell.
went through hell
Yeah.
in the situation.
Like hell on earth.
But found God in the midst
of the
storm.
Definitely. And he touched base a little bit at the very end of that part 3 of some of the redemption that he has now. But there's so much more to the story. And he actually just had another baby.
Woo!
So he's got two sons now.
And
little Galen Porter.
It's so beautiful that because I think we talked about it a little bit because he had to self-quarantine himself and then he got COVID.
Right.
Because he was a COVID nurse.
Right.
Then he got COVID and he was scared he wasn't going to be able to see his son born.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And we pulled the picture up right before we went live and there he is just holding the baby.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story.
It's great to see how much destruction happened, and now that he's lived through it and gone through it, destruction that he caused, and how the redemptive grace and mercy of God has brought him out and where it's brought him to today.
Yeah. And what were those 3 episodes?
Those 3 episodes were 15, 16, and 17, the Conversations with Paul Lindgren, part 1, 2, and 3.
I love it. Well, dude,
so
we're down to our last 2 clips.
Last 2, Mark, beauty before age, I guess, because I can't say I'm older than you. So
I saved the Beth for last.
Very nice. Very nice. What do we got?
I got Beth Schneider of the Schneider Ladies from episode 39. Now, I do have to say this. We've mentioned her a lot in the last little bit. I feel like we made her famous. I feel like we need some royalties. We need some royalties,
Or is it the other way around?
We're not going to talk about the fact that she has 3,000 followers and we have barely. I think we don't have 400 yet.
Yeah, right.
On Instagram, but
that's all right.
Beth is.
It's not about the numbers. It's about the content of the message. Just throwing that.
But
out
Beth
there.
still beats us with that.
Well,
too, so it's okay. But either way,
no, it's different content.
That's true. But either way, so I actually have 2 different clips that I put together because they're both crazy short. But Beth she's single. She's 28. She fostered 5 girls and ended up adopting all 5. The oldest being 8, and then she has 2. I think they're around 19 months or around there.
All with special needs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, most of them are drug babies. The oldest one, Ava, she has cerebral palsy. Yeah,
I think that's what she said.
Issues with her legs and the right side of her body. Yeah. So Fuller always jokes that we don't want to call people saints, but
then she should apply for sainthood through the Catholic Church. I'm a Baptist, but I'm applying for sainthood.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. But we asked her the question of how does she bring the gospel in the conversation about the girls, about the fact of that their parents didn't want them anymore, and how does she have those conversations with them? And then Fuller, you open up and say, any last thoughts from you, Beth? And she just gives us gold in this conversation.
All right, let's hear it.
So how do you handle a tender heart like that, and even bring in the gospel into it? Because I've met some kids where it's like, God ain't good because he let me be involved in this situation. So have you had those types of conversations with the girls yet?
Yeah, my oldest is very mature. When she came to live with me, she was basically raising the other one. Her sister was 2 years younger, is 2 years younger than her. And so she's very, very mature. And so we've had those conversations. And one thing, reunification, is a beautiful picture of redemption, but so is adoption. And so looking at redemption is their story, not being taken away, not being doing this, not all the bad stuff, but redemption, and how God's using all the bad stuff in their life for his glory, and how God could use being returned to biological parents for his glory as redemption, and for the parents and for the children to be redeemed into a complete family again. But God can also use adoption, because just as we are adopted into his family, to see that God used God's love is greater than all the bad parts of our story.
Is there anything else, Beth, that you want to say or add on?
Yeah, you can be involved in foster care without actually fostering. Sometimes the opportunity, our lives are not ready for it or whatever, but also don't overthink it, because even if you live in a 700 square foot apartment that smells like pot, you can still foster.
If it's not your pot.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Just people overthink God's will sometimes, and just go until God stops you sometimes. It's all you need to do.
Both of y'all missed my "As long as it ain't your pot."
We did, but I laughed when I heard it this time.
That's okay. She Facebook messaged the podcast and Instagram, and she's like, "I totally did not hear you say unless it's not your pot." But yeah,
that was I believe that was the last day of my quarantine when we were interviewing with her.
Yeah, because you could hear your radio voice a little bit because that weird pixely sound.
Yeah, it sounded like I was calling in.
But tell you what, so she's been on a lot of other podcasts since then, sharing her story and a lot of different things. So we got the pleasure, though, of getting it first.
That's right.
But, hearing her story of how she was raised, where she found her love, and she always wanted to be involved in orphan care. She wanted to be involved in orphan ministry. And
she just thought it was going to be overseas.
Yeah, and she kept trying, and stuff just didn't work. But instead is going overseas to, do orphan ministry.
Right.
God let her open her home and rescue these girls and give them a new name and a new identity, a new purpose, which is what Jesus did for us.
Yeah, it was such a great conversation with her, and being able to see how God has moved through her lives to help the lives of those less fortunate, to taking care of the children that are really in need. So
yeah, and that was episode 39, single foster / adopted mom of 5 kids, featuring Beth Schneider of @Schneider Ladies.
I don't even know if I can follow that one up with the last one.
But see, here's the deal, bro. You have to, because at the very beginning of the podcast, you were like,
the best one.
You led with your favorite. I'm going to lead with my favorite.
I was really hoping that you were gonna throw her in the middle and give me your faith and science one or something.
I saved the Beth for last.
You saved the Beth for last.
I did. I wish I did the rhino poop fun fact though, because she whipped out a fun fact on us.
It was pretty funny.
She whipped it out.
But now the listeners have to go back if they want to hear it again.
There you go. That was 39. But what was your favorite episode?
I've mentioned it before when people have asked what our favorite episode is, and my favorite episode, because it rings so true in my heart, and that's the only reason why it's my favorite, is because it's how I try to live my life, was episode 27, Speaking the Truth in Love. And we kind of try to establish a little bit in this clip of what truth actually is. When you're speaking truth, right, a lot of people think, that's why they act kind of like a judge, like the judger. I'm judging you.
Right.
But it's not that, okay? So we're helping each other, remind each other of God's truths, right?
Yep.
So eating McDonald's hamburger, though it's not good for you, the Bible, God's truth doesn't say, hey, don't go eat McDonald's hamburger.
Thank goodness.
So that's more of a conversational piece.
Right. Yep.
To me.
Versus
it's not speaking truth.
Maybe versus someone who's this person is a gossiper. You guys say, hey, look,
right.
You got gossip is a sin.
Right.
It's a divisive tool, and the Bible even says what's hilarious is divisivity in the church is reason for church communication or church discipline.
Right. Well, that's because a house divided can never stand.
Exactly. So how do you call that out? Where it's like, okay, so this person's a gossiper, you got to call them out. And that's when it comes in with what you're saying, where the fact of make sure you've checked yourself before you, and you get yourself in a place where am I even at a place where I can call out their sin? Now, we should all be in a place where hopefully where we're close enough in relationship and proximity to have those real hard conversations.
But most of the time, people that are just going to come out and be blatant and not have the right heart probably don't know you that well.
Those type Ds?
I don't know what they are.
The type D personality? I don't like.
That's
I don't
for a
get along
different
with those
podcast.
people. That's for the last one. No, but those people who they don't care what you think; they just want to say what's on their mind.
Right.
Yep.
And
that
so,
style.
So once you've established, I think these two things, right?
Yep.
You know, the first, are they Christian or not? And then number two, have you established whether it's an actual sin? Are you going to speak actual truth from God, or is it more of a personal preference?
Mm-hmm.
Are you just living by your convictions and trying to push them off on somebody else that may not be their convictions? So establish those two things first. And then the third thing you have to establish, have they made things right with God and those who have been affected by the sin? Yeah, that, to me, establishing that truth, that's what I really like, that conversation we were having there, is so important. It's so important to make sure that you're actually doing truth. And not just personal opinion, and figuring out what's just a conversation piece and what is actually needing to be spoken. And when you speak it out of love. And again, that episode was episode 27, Speaking the Truth in Love.
And thank God McDonald's is okay.
And McDonald's is just a conversation piece.
it ain't about, it ain't as good Chick-fil-A, but it's still good.
So, Mark, I mean, we've gone through 10 of our favorite moments. Not exactly all of our favorite moments, but some of our favorite moments of the past 49 podcasts.
And I feel bad because we cut out.
There's so
the John Tibbs conversation was brilliant.
John
awesome.
Tibbs, again, if you don't know, John Tibbs is a Christian recording artist, a pretty well known one in most Christian circles. Tours with a lot of big name Christian artists.
Yep.
Man, his story is incredible.
Absolutely, it was great.
I love Tibbs. Still follow Tibbs.
And also episode 40 with
Sarah
the Frericks.
The
Frericks, Joseph and
yeah.
Kimberly, the missionaries to Peru, and then also with Sarah Nass.
Sarah Nass with Femme. That would have been. I'm trying to think.
Fertility, education,
and medical management.
Basically, natural birth control.
It's
knowing your cycles.
Episode 37. If you want to go back and listen
that was
to
like a fact drop, bro.
I was like, huh? Because I had never heard of it before.
We were educated.
It was a good conversation. But yeah, we've had so many good conversations, and we hope that.
But you know what the best part is, though, bro?
What's that?
We ain't done yet.
Oh no,
we ain't done having conversations. We got a lot more coming.
We have so many more, and we would like to hear more from our listeners.
Yeah.
Questions or comments, or just if you
to ask RTC anyone, or not ask RTC anyone, ask RTC anything by the random people. That was a blast, dude.
That was awesome.
That was legit. That was awesome.
What episode was that? That was episode 43, 44, 45, 46, 46, 46.
46 and 47.
I got the head nod for that. Yeah, 46 and 47. Yeah, we made it a two-parter. We didn't even think we were going to do a two-parter. So but it was a good conversation.
Magic envelope from Janelle.
And we could have gone so much deeper, and we wanted to go so much deeper. We were like, we got all these questions to read, and we didn't even get to them all. So.
But now people can call us and leave voicemail. Now, if you are wanting to leave a voicemail, it might be safe just to shoot a text first and be like, don't pick up.
Yeah, if you want your question to actually be aired, like you saying the question.
Or let's just say Mark and one of us go, hello, this is Mark, hey, or hello, this is Fuller. I can't do the low voice. And you go, I don't want to talk. Can I just leave a voicemail? Cool. We'll hang up.
Yeah. Hey, yo, no problem. That was my deep.
That's creepy.
Wait, let me go back to my episode 1 radio voice. No problem. And now it's time for, what time is it, Mark? We were going to jump into something here after our 10 greatest, not greatest, but 10 memorable moments.
10 memorable moments. It's time to bring out the 5 memorable fun facts with Fuller. And before I let the man go loose.
Oh man.
We went back and listened to episode 1. And at the very end, you weren't even ready. I even said I want to end every podcast episode like this. Fuller, give me a fun fact. And you're like,
you didn't say fun fact though.
I just said, no, what did I say?
You said, give me your final thought.
Final thought. And you were like, okay, about the episode. I'm like, no, dude, I want something
And
stupid.
so I was like, okay, yeah, so here's my final thoughts. And then you're like, no, I want something stupid. Yeah.
So you whipped out the dad joke of all dad jokes.
I did.
But in order to hear it,
you got to go back and listen to episode 1. Because that's
episode
not on
1.
our top 5 list.
No, because that was me throwing Fuller under the fun fact with Fuller bus. And then something beautiful came out of it.
It just blossomed.
So
like a beautiful
So
rose.
anyway, Fuller. So
anyways,
you had to come up with your 5 of your favorite ones. Just these are not the top 5, but just 5 memorable ones that we talk about a lot.
Yeah, well, we mentioned a few of these on several podcasts because
actually, yeah, because we just
number
love talking
1
about
is definitely your favorite.
Number 1's my
top.
favorite.
It's
of
your
all
top one, and you mention it so often that we had to put it on the list. So, number 1 fun fact with Fuller review. We'll call it the review session.
Fun facts revisited.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
We have reviews from the audience.
That's true.
You know.
All right. So number 1, in the 19th century, experts warned women, man, I can't talk, warned women about a disease called bicycle face, which meant getting stuck with an awkward faces that were made while riding a bike.
It's my favorite one.
I don't know why you're stuck on that one.
Because it's like, do you really think someone's face is gonna get stuck like that, bro? Like, wow. Like, it's just that's just
face.
so
it's
dumb.
We'll just be talking, and all of a sudden, Mark will be like, "Bicycle face."
It's fun.
All right.
What else we got?
Number 2, a U.S. town had a 3-year-old mayor. In the small town of Dorset, Minnesota, where a new mayor is picked every 2 years by drawing names out of a hat, a 3-year-old, Robert Tufts, was elected mayor in 2015. His governing style, being nice and no poopy talk.
No poopy
And
talk.
that's our thing. We say that all the time. No poopy talk.
No poopy talk. All right, what else we got, bro?
Number 3. Did you know, and obviously we do if you've listened to this episode of the song, which I'm not going to, I want you guys to go out and find these fun facts in the episodes. It's like a little scavenger hunt.
Ooh, okay. What happens if someone wins?
Something will happen. I don't know. We haven't figured that out yet, but something big will happen. So number 3, all of Toy Story 2 was almost deleted because of one line of code. According to Mental Floss, Pixar co-founder Ed Catmull wrote in his book that Toy Story 2 was almost entirely deleted with just one line of code. First, Woody's hat disappeared, then his boots, then he disappeared entirely, wrote Catmull in his book. Whole sequences, poof, were deleted from the drive. Fortunately, a technical director who was working from home had a backup copy of the film with her.
How terrifying would that be?
That would have been you know what? My kids would be so sad because we watch Toy Story almost every day.
Because literally, you're watching Woody freaking disappear.
Boom, boom. It's like Thanos just snapped his fingers, and it's like, all right, goodbye. So, yeah, that would have been horrible. Anyways, number 4.
Number 4.
Coffee Pioneer was buried in a coffee pot. And we know Renata Bialati.
Confidence.
That was as confident as I can get with that one. I butchered it again. The guy who popularized the stovetop octagonal espresso maker that still bears his name, also asked that his remains be buried in the receptacle that was most important to him in his life. When he died in 2016 at the age of 93, his ashes were placed in one of his pots and buried next to his late wife.
There you go.
There you go. And the final, number 5.
The final one. Oh, this was brilliant. I love
lobsters communicate with their bladders. Lobsters have a bladder on either side of their heads, so they communicate by urinating at each other. If they want another lobster to know that they're happy or sad or angry or interested in a relationship, they say it with pee.
Sup, girl?
Yo, bro, what's up?
Like, seriously, how is that okay? Like, any fair stretch of the imagination. How the heck is that okay?
Instead of how you doing, it's how you...
There's no way to follow up with that.
No, but Mark, you know, we're doing our giveaway.
Yep, we're doing the giveaway,
which is going to be dropping here soon. Go ahead and make sure you enter. We will be drawing our name tomorrow. So if you're listening to it today, Thursday, we will be drawing the name on Friday.
Yep,
and we will be doing that live, and we'll give you guys the results, winning some miraculous prizes.
Yep, and some people might be wondering and have asked. Instagram and Facebook, they're identical posts. We're not doing one for Instagram, one for Facebook. We're putting them both together for the giveaways.
Right. When you, I'm a Facebook guy. I don't know Instagram, but when you like, share, and comment or whatever you do on Instagram, you
don't do any of that on Instagram.
Yeah, we write whatever you do to help us out. We write your name.
You like it, and you tag some friends.
Yeah, there you go.
You like it, you tag some friends.
So you do that. We write your name down. We throw it in a hat. We're going to draw a name out of the mysterious hat. We are not going to look. We're going to do that tomorrow.
And you're going to get the RTC Mega Swag bag.
Mega Swag
we are
bag.
so excited.
It's going to be legit. So, Mark, this is...
This is the end of a season, dude.
After that, it's end of season 1, man.
End of season. We've made it through season 1.
Season 1. Thank you all.
We've had a lot of highs. We've had... Well, we haven't had any lows. We've had all highs. It's been all highs.
Slowly, gradually.
Especially the pot episode. We had a lot of highs on that episode. Just kidding.
But thank you to all of our listeners, all those that have stuck with us from the beginning, all those who have joined us at some point. We appreciate it. Continue to share these podcast episodes to get into the ears of other listeners.
Yep.
Not only to help us get into their ears, but to help them maybe in some way, shape, or form through these conversations. Also, go ahead and get a hold of us on Instagram, or get a hold of us on Facebook, or on Twitter, or...
You got it.
What else did we got?
Email.
Oh, you could leave us reviews.
Leave us a review on Apple, iTunes, or even Facebook.
I don't even know why I tried to... This is you, bro.
Or you can leave us an email at realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can call us.
Or text us.
Or text us at 574-400-5352. Again, 574-400-5352.
I love it. Hey, we will be back August 6th, 2020, which is right around our 1 year anniversary since we started the podcast. Yeah. So we will see you guys August 6th.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Real Talk Christian. To help get our podcast into the ears of other people who need to hear these conversations, we would love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. To keep the conversations going, feel free to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and share our content with others. See you next time.